Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Cal Royal number 134RSDL20. This is a sliding privacy pocket door lock is what it is. Okay. This model, the 134, is intended for 1.75" thick doors. And it has some special accommodations to allow it to work on an 1.75" door, which we'll go over in a moment. The lock is generally assembled like this when it arrives to you. And is available in lots of different finishes, namely US10B oil rubbed bronze finish, US15 satin nickel, 15A is antique nickel, US26 for polished chrome. This is the US26D satin chrome, US3 and US3 is polished brass. And then US5 is antique brass. Okay. Sold as each. You're going to get the lock, you're going to get the latch bolt, you're going to get a strike plate, and you're going to get screws for attaching the latch bolt and the strike plate, and then of course installation instructions, and these are linked below this video so that you can review them before, perhaps during installation if you like. Now before we get into the installation instructions, let's talk about the lock itself. I guess we'll do both at the same time. So what you're going to have is these two circular plates, and that's intended for a 2 1/8 inch hole. The side that would have the privacy button release on, I want you to remove those two screws. Not the side with the small hole in it. Not that side. If you want to, you're going to have to remove them to get it installed. Just don't want to lose those screws, obviously. Got your plate removed. Then at this point, the latch bolt will simply come out. Now, I mentioned that there were some special considerations that apply for this lock specifically. Here's what I mean. These two little extensions will be included for an 1.75" door for the button to engage or disengage it. I should say to engage it. You'll then also have a extension for the release as well. The locking button. The locking button is what this is. This is the release, and this is the locking button extension. Now, when you have an 1.75" thick door, you have to use those pieces so that you can get the hardware extended out far enough for the thicker aspect of the door. The locking button extension here, the release, then your two extension pieces snap on. And they'll be in the package with the screws. And it's thick enough to work. Now, so this is your latch bolt. And what you're dealing with is a 2 3/8 back set, which is of course going to be typical and common for residential doors. The dimension of the latch bolt, 1 inch by 2 1/4. So that's going to be very common. And it's going to work in all of your typical installations. The template calls this out at 1 1/8 inch wide. And frankly, I don't know why they would want you to prep that at 1 1/8 wide. I mean, it's 1 inch. I wouldn't make it 1 1/8 wide. I would prep it for what this is. I don't see a reason to have that any thicker than necessary. Okay. Now, after you get that prepped, the door prep, you would insert the latch bolt without those extension pieces. You would depress the locking button extension and then slide that in. Don't rotate it. Don't force it. Okay. That will go in. Now, what you've got is the way that the latch bolt works you've got the tip of my finger, a little hook, that when I depress the release, which is in the center, it retracts that hook. And when I set the locking button extension, when I'm in the room, it forces it out. And what that's connecting to is that bar that is in the strike. Okay, well, that mystery's solved. The 1 1/8" dimension that they're calling out is going to be for your strike plate. 2 1/4, but the strike is going to be what's 1 1/8. 1 1/8 in the frame, 1 inch in the door. Now, you've got that locking point projected. You slide that door closed, and it's just sure going to lock, no problem at all. You can't really pull that apart until, of course, you depress the button, and it will slide apart. Until you then reoccupy the room, and you'll notice that when I depress that to pull it apart, I then use the lock again, and you'll see how that button projects out, because that is, again, your locking button. Okay? So that's your typical installation of that. So you've got your latch bolt, 2 3/8, 2 1/4 by 1 1/8. Your 2 trim plates. Now, this is the side with the emergency release button, which is always the exterior. The little hole goes away from the strike jamb. That lines up, of course, with the release button, so that they're on the same side. Okay. Should you, and this again has to be on the exterior side, should someone become trapped inside the room, you'd be able to insert a very small item, like maybe a number 4 penny finish nail, and of course then be able to activate that release and moving it in the opposite direction. And operating that release will allow you to physically push that in. It's just spring loaded, okay? But it won't just pull open because of the shoulder to the underside of this. So you'd physically have to push the emergency release back so that you could easily just then pull the door, because then it's not engaged. Okay. So now to give you the full operation, should the emergency release need to be enacted, I'm inside the room because I've got the locking portion on my side. I've entered the room, it's locked, I've pushed the release. You can see what's happening there. When I enter the room and push, watch this release button. It snaps out. Now it's centered, now it doesn't work. If you had to use the emergency by depressing that from the exterior, that spring-loaded action simply allows you to depress the button from the outside exterior, allowing it to come apart. Okay. The exterior side is going to have these square posts. Don't remove those. There's no reason to remove those at all. Leave those right where they are. Okay. The diameter of your plates, about 2 3/4 diameter. Okay, that's going to work quite lovely in a 2 1/8 inch diameter hole. Very thin material. It's probably no more than 30 thousandths. Or 40 thousandths, I'd say. So it's not going to present any sort of obstacle to your sliding door, pocket door scenario. So I've got the entire lock disassembled, and that's no problem, and that's easy. Put that back together. Let's go over the installation instructions. So step 1, if you are reviewing below this video, using the template above, mark a horizontal line 38 inch from the door bottom. Mark a 2 1/8 inch bore. The center should be 2 3/8 from the edge of the door. Mark a 15/16 bore on the edge of the door along the horizontal center line and centered on the door thickness. So what they're basically telling you is prep the door. The 38 dimension from the bottom of the door up, you can put it anywhere you want. They're just saying that's going to be pretty common. You probably will want to take an audit or a poll of the other doors around you to make sure that that centerline dimension where you're going to install this matches everything. If you were to have like a commercial setting, and this is not ADA compliant at all, but imagine if you had a long hallway with several office doors, you're going to want the line of sight to line up correctly with where you'll install for this as well. So where you put it is up to you. 38 is a guideline. Now, okay, so the dimension, you're going to want to make sure 2 3/8 back, they jump right into mark the door for a 2 1/8 inch bore. Well, you need to determine your back set, and that's 2 3/8. Now, obviously, you're going to be dealing with a door that is square edge. You would not have a bevel on a door like this. You want to plane the door so that it's square. If it had a bevel, it is probably already starting out as a square edge door. And once you've got your center line, your vertical center line, then 2 3/8 back to the center of the hole, edge of the door to the center, you can drill your 2 1/8 hole. That will give you the ability to get this all installed. Then what they're saying is they want a 15/16 bore on the edge of the door along the horizontal center line and centered in the door thickness. So you're going to want a 15/16 of an inch fly cut bit or spade bit. Measure the thickness of the door, 1 3/4. You might want to. It's helpful to have a caliper because an 1 3/4 door is generally not 1.75. It's generally 1.71. Not a big deal, but when you're really thinking about making that mouth the opening of the bolt and hitting the pin of the strike line up, you're going to want to be sure that you mortise it as accurately as possible. Okay. Now, in the center of the door thickness, if it's 1.72, just split that difference and try to mark it accurately in the center of the door at the horizontal center line. So if you're doing 38 inch, your 2 1/8 hole will be at 38 inch. Your 15/16 hole will be at 38 inch. As long as you're measuring from the same side end, whatever it is. Drill that bore straight down. Then you're going to come with your chisel, hammer and chisel, or maybe a router, even better. Do your 2 1/4 by 1 inch. Make sure that fits down nicely. What I like to do is, and you will certainly, by the way, need to, backing up the 15/16 of an inch hole, you're going to need to over drill it as it's shown here. Just go back 3/8 of an inch or so, because the edge of that, the back end of that latch bolt will sometimes just sneak in past where the 2 1/8 inch hole is. What I like to do is, especially with a lock like this, test the fit with it face down. You don't want to have to drive this plastic bolt back out. So face down, make sure that it fits real nice. And then once you know that it fits nice, you're in good shape, then insert your bolt down or into the edge of the door. Okay, fine. You'll have to be careful to depress that when you're pushing it in and through. Otherwise, you're going to run the risk of damaging it. So push that down and then insert. Don't hammer, don't twist. You just want to get it put in. If it's going in really tight, try to back that out a little bit and make the hole just large enough. You can make it 1 inch. The problem with drilling a 1 inch hole is it tends to ovalize a little bit as you're entering, the cutting part. And this is just 1 inch wide itself, so you don't want to have any exposed area around this that's not filled. So you've got your door prep, you've got your latch bolt installed. Step 2, we've kind of jumped ahead. Bore the 2 1/8 inch hole. We've done that. We've done all of step 2. 2 1/8 hole, 15/16, drill it deep. Mark and mortise for latch 1/8 of an inch deep. It's actually 5/32 is the actual correct depth. Remove the strike plate from the lock by depressing the latch release button. We've done that. Step 4, we've done that already. Install the latch bolt. Remove it from the assembled product. When you get it, you have to disassemble the lock in step 4. Do not remove the screws from the guiding blocks, is what they refer to. Don't pull those out. Determine which side is the locking side and install the latch by depressing the nylon locking button to fit into the 15/16 hole. Avoid twisting the latch when inserting. Make sure the locking button is on the locking side of the door. Before you go stuffing this into the hole, this has to be on the interior side. Okay, you're not going to be able to rotate that once it's in the door. So just insert it properly the first time is really all of A in step 4 and B. And C. That's all done. Snap the latch button covers on both sides. Once you have it inserted into the hole, you have to snap the latch button covers on both sides. These installation instructions are only for 1 3/4 doors. You're going to snap those on. And while you're at it, snap on your privacy button. Okay. Depress on the inside a little bit, then it won't move and you'll be able to push that down. Now you have your installation working very well. Then, from the exterior side with the emergency release, you're going to bring that obviously down and in, line that up. And of course on the inside, like that, I'm going to hold this in my hand while I put the screws back in. And obviously it would be easier if I was doing it on a door. I'd be able to show it to you better, but nonetheless. At this point you're going to have the lock installed. Okay. It's going to look like that, like we did when we started out. At that point you're going to mark the frame for your strike. They don't really give dimensions for that at all. You'll want to measure it. 1 1/8, 2 1/4. The thickness, again about 5/32 of an inch. The key is you're going to need to mortise this in the proper vertical height. Make any adjustments necessary. You wouldn't use 38 inch if you were measuring from the bottom of the door to the center line, because what about the undercut, the dimension between the bottom of the door and the floor? Okay, so maybe you would run your tape measure from the floor up to the center line of the lock, but take your 38 inch dimension, add the undercut, and then that's your jam dimension up. You're going to mark that horizontal center line. You're going to get this placed so that the center line of the strike is also the center line of the lock. One trick that old carpenters use is they'll put a little bit of, believe it or not, lipstick on the end of that. Just let that tap the frame and it will mark it for you, and that's going to give you a real good reality check in terms of where that's all going to line up. Okay. Chisel, obviously you're going to have to drill that out. I would say 15/16. You can go with 1 inch with that. You got plenty of room there. Chisel that so that it's flush. Make any adjustments as necessary. Step 5 is what we just discussed. Determine location on the jam by sliding closed the pocket door until the latch hits the jam. Mark the location where the strike hits the jam. Drill a 15/16 of a hole 1 inch deep. It doesn't need, well, yeah, it probably does need to be that deep, or close. Yeah, 3/4 inch. Mark the strike plate 15/16 once you've got the hole drilled. Then you can trace out the perimeter of this and chisel that. Then attach. We did not say that, but you've probably hopefully got the screws, the latch bolt attached, and then the strike plate attached. And that exhausts the installation aspect of this Cal Royal sliding privacy door lock. Obviously, when you get rid of the 1 3/8, the 1 3/4 part of the part number, you'll be dealing with an 1 3/8 lock. That is just the RSDL20. So if you search for RSDL20, you will find only the 1 3/8 versions. But 1 3/4 is not uncommon and not unheard of. A very nice quality lock for the cost, certainly for the cost. I would have no hesitation about using this Cal Royal lock in a residential application. And frankly, I have no reservations about using Cal Royal on practically everything. Good quality company in terms of a confluence of value, customer service, price. They know their business and they do it like clockwork. They really do. Send an order, a day later the confirmation's there, and then before you know it, it's shipping. And they do that over and over and over again. So I appreciate Cal Royal for their excellence. And just customer service coordination. If you have any questions on the Cal Royal, they're part number 134RSDL20 in the US26D finish. or any other Cal Royal product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.